What if the difference between freezing and speaking English confidently was only 3 seconds? Most learners believe they need more vocabulary, more grammar, or more years of study before they can speak naturally. But when someone asks them a simple question, their knowledge suddenly disappears. Their mind begins translating, correcting, doubting, and searching for the perfect sentence. Before they find it, the conversation has already moved on. This book will teach you a different response. Pause for 3 seconds, organize one clear thought, and begin speaking with the English you already possess. Those 3 seconds are not empty silence. They are the bridge between understanding English and actually using it. You do not need to speak perfectly. You need to train yourself to respond before fear takes control. When this small habit is repeated every day, English gradually stops feeling like a difficult subject and starts becoming your natural voice. Before we begin, subscribe to English Mindset Academy and comment, "I will speak before fear stops me." Let that sentence become your commitment. This audiobook is published by English Mindset Academy. Now let us begin building the 3-second habit that can transform your English fluency. Chapter 1. The moment your English disappears. There is a painful moment that almost every English learner understands. You are sitting alone, watching an English video, listening to an audiobook, or reading a page, and everything seems clear. You recognize the words, understand the sentences, and quietly feel that your English is improving. But then someone turns toward you and asks a simple question in English. Suddenly, the words you understood only a moment ago seem to disappear. Your mind becomes crowded, your mouth becomes silent, and even the easiest sentence feels impossible to produce. You begin searching for grammar rules, translating possible answers, rejecting simple words, and worrying about your pronunciation, all within a few uncomfortable seconds. When you finally speak, your answer may sound much shorter and weaker than the one you had imagined. Sometimes you say nothing at all, smile nervously, or change the subject, and afterward you think of 10 perfect answers that you could have given. This experience can make you believe that your English is poor, that your memory is weak, or that you simply do not have the natural ability to become fluent. But that conclusion is not true. Your English has not disappeared. It is still inside you. The real problem is that your mind has not yet learned how to access that knowledge quickly when conversation places you under pressure. Understanding English and producing English are two different abilities. When you listen or read, English is already being presented to you. The vocabulary has been selected, the grammar has been organized, and the complete message is placed in front of your mind. You only need to recognize it. Speaking requires something more demanding. You must create the message yourself, choose the words, arrange them into a sentence, control your pronunciation, observe the listener's reaction, and decide what to say next. All of this must happen while the conversation continues moving. This is why a learner can understand an entire movie scene but struggle to answer a basic question about their own day. Recognition has been practiced thousands of times, while spontaneous production has received far less training. You may have spent years filling your mind with English without regularly teaching your mouth how to release it. This does not mean your previous learning was wasted. It means your knowledge now needs to be converted from something you recognize into something you can retrieve and use. Imagine that your English vocabulary is stored inside a large library. Thousands of useful words, expressions, and sentence patterns may already be sitting on its shelves. But during conversation, you do not have time to walk slowly through every section and examine every book. You need to know where the right information is and reach it quickly. When fear enters the situation, it is as though the lights inside that library suddenly become weaker. The words are still present, but you cannot locate them easily. The harder you force yourself to remember, the more distant they seem to become. This explains why a familiar word can disappear during a conversation and return to you 5 minutes later. Your memory did not suddenly improve after the conversation ended. The pressure simply became weaker, allowing your mind to retrieve what it already knew. The solution, therefore, is not always to collect more words. Sometimes the solution is to build a faster and calmer path toward the words you already possess. Many learners accidentally make this problem worse by demanding an impressive answer before allowing themselves to speak. When someone asks, "What do you think about working from home?" they do not search for one simple thought. Instead, they attempt to construct a complete, intelligent, grammatically perfect response in their first language and then translate it into polished English. They want advanced vocabulary, accurate grammar, natural pronunciation, and a powerful opinion to appear at the same time. This creates a mental traffic jam. Several possible sentences begin competing for attention, and every one of them is judged before it reaches the mouth. A simple sentence such as, "I like working from home because it saves time," could begin the conversation successfully, but the learner rejects it because it feels too basic. While searching for something more impressive, they lose the opportunity to say anything at all. Fluency begins to grow when you understand that a simple sentence spoken at the right moment is more valuable than an advanced sentence that remains trapped inside your head. This is where the 3-second habit begins. When someone asks you a question, you do not need to attack the answer immediately, and you do not need to disappear into a long silence. Give yourself 3 calm and deliberate seconds. In the first second, breathe and prevent panic from controlling your response. In the second second, identify the one central idea you want to communicate. In the third second, choose the simplest opening that can carry that idea into speech. Then begin before your inner critic starts adding unnecessary pressure. If someone asks, "Why are you learning English?" your complete life story does not need to be ready. You only need a doorway into the answer. "I am learning English because I want better opportunities." Once that first sentence is spoken, you can add another. "I also want to communicate confidently with people from different countries." The response develops while you are speaking, and you discover that you never needed to prepare every sentence before beginning. Those 3 seconds are not a magical formula that will instantly remove every hesitation, and they are not a promise that you will always produce the perfect answer. Their power comes from the pattern they teach. Instead of reacting to English with panic, translation, and self-judgment, you begin responding with calmness, direction, and action. The pause gives your mind enough space to choose a message without giving fear enough time to build a wall around it. It teaches you that you are allowed to think briefly before speaking, and that a thoughtful pause is not a sign of poor English. Native speakers also pause, reconsider, restart sentences, and search for words. The difference is that they do not usually treat every pause as evidence that they are failing. They remain connected to the conversation, trusting that the next words will come. You must begin developing the same trust in yourself. At first, the old habits will resist this new method. During your 3 seconds, your mind may still translate. It may remind you of grammar rules, warn you about mistakes, or tell you that the listener is judging you. Do not fight every thought individually. Simply return your attention to one question: what is the main thing I want to say? This question removes unnecessary complexity. Communication begins with meaning, not grammar. Once the meaning is clear, choose the English you already control. If you cannot remember the word exhausted, say very tired. If inconvenient disappears, say not easy or causes problems. If you cannot form a complicated sentence, divide it into 2 or 3 shorter, clearer sentences. Fluency is not the ability to recall every perfect word on command. It is the ability to keep expressing meaning even when the perfect word is unavailable. You must also stop measuring your spoken English against the English you can create when you have unlimited time. A message you write slowly, edit carefully, and check repeatedly will naturally sound more polished than an answer produced during a live conversation. These are different conditions, and comparing them unfairly will destroy your confidence. Your conversational English needs permission to be faster, simpler, and less perfect. That permission does not make you careless, it makes real practice possible. Accuracy can be improved after speech has begun developing, but speech cannot develop if accuracy is used as a gate that prevents every imperfect sentence from leaving your mouth. You cannot polish a voice that you never allow yourself to use. Think about a child learning to walk. The child does not wait until every movement can be performed perfectly. The ability grows through attempts that are unstable at first. Speaking develops through a similar process. Every time you answer a question, describe an experience, express an opinion, or continue after making a mistake, you are strengthening the connection between thought and speech. The first answers may feel slow and uncertain, but repetition changes what your mind considers normal. A question that once created panic eventually becomes familiar. A sentence pattern that once required careful construction begins appearing automatically. Your mouth learns the rhythm of phrases your eyes have read and your ears have heard many times. Gradually, English stops feeling like information that must be carefully recovered and starts becoming a tool you can reach when you need it. Begin practicing with ordinary questions because daily language creates the strongest foundation. Ask yourself what you did this morning, what food you enjoy, what kind of work you would like to do, what you think about social media, where you would like to travel, or what habit you want to change. Give yourself 3 seconds before each answer. Do not write the answer first because writing can become another hiding place. Speak aloud, even if you are alone. Start with one direct sentence, add one reason, and then include one example. If the question is, what helps you relax? You might answer, listening to music helps me relax because it takes my attention away from stress. For example, I often listen to quiet music after finishing my work. This is not complicated English, but it is real, organized, and useful communication. Repeating this process trains you to build answers from meaning instead of waiting for memorized scripts. Some days, your answers will flow more easily. On other days, you may hesitate, repeat words, or feel that you are making no progress. Do not judge the entire journey by one difficult practice session. Fluency develops quietly through repeated contact with discomfort. The important victory is not that every answer sounded excellent, it is that you remained present, used the 3-second pause, and spoke before fear convinced you to stay silent. Every successful response, however small, sends a new message to your mind. When English comes to me, I can answer. That belief cannot be built through motivation alone, it is built through evidence, and every spoken answer becomes another piece of that evidence. The moment your English seems to disappear is not proof that you cannot become fluent, it is the exact moment where fluency training must begin. Do not run from that silence, feel ashamed of it, or use it as a reason to study silently for another year. Enter it with a new habit. Breathe for 1 second, choose your message during the next, find a simple opening during the third, and then speak with the English available to you. Your first sentence does not need to be extraordinary, it only needs to open the door. Once that door opens repeatedly, the knowledge stored inside you will begin finding its way into your voice, and the English that once disappeared under pressure will gradually become the English that appears when you need it most. Chapter 2. What to do during the 3 seconds. 3 seconds may appear too short to change the way you speak English, but a small amount of time can become extremely powerful when your mind knows exactly how to use it. Most learners already pause before answering, yet their pause does not help them because it is filled with confusion. They use those seconds to translate an entire response, search for advanced vocabulary, inspect grammar, imagine possible mistakes, and worry about what the listener might think. Instead of preparing the mind to speak, the pause becomes a private argument between confidence and fear. By the time the learner finally chooses a sentence, the natural moment to respond has almost passed. The purpose of the 3-second habit is not simply to remain silent for 3 seconds. Its purpose is to replace that confusion with a clear mental process that can guide you from listening to speaking. During those 3 seconds, you will calm the pressure, choose one central message, and give that message a simple English beginning. You are not building the entire answer. You are only creating enough direction to begin. The first second belongs to calmness. When a question reaches you, your body may react before your mind has even understood what is happening. Your breathing becomes shallow, your shoulders tighten, your heartbeat feels stronger, and an urgent voice inside you says that you must answer immediately. This physical pressure makes language retrieval more difficult because your attention is no longer focused only on the meaning of the question. Part of your mind is listening, another part is checking grammar, another part is watching the speaker's face, and another part is preparing for embarrassment. The first second gives you permission to interrupt that reaction. Take one small, natural breath and allow the question to settle. You do not need a dramatic breath that makes the conversation feel unusual. A calm inhalation, a slight nod, or a thoughtful expression is enough to tell both your body and your mind that you are still present and preparing to answer. That single moment changes your position. You are no longer running away from the question, you are receiving it. Calmness does not mean that all nervousness must disappear before you speak. Waiting to feel completely confident can become another reason to remain silent. The goal is to reduce the panic just enough for your English to become accessible. You can feel nervous and still communicate successfully. You can notice your heartbeat and still produce a clear sentence. Courage in conversation is not the absence of discomfort, it is the decision to continue while discomfort is present. During the first second, do not ask yourself whether you feel ready. Simply breathe and remain connected to the speaker. This teaches your nervous system that an English question is not a threat, it is an invitation to communicate, and you are capable of responding even when your response is not perfect. The second belongs to meaning. Ask yourself, what is the main thing I want this person to understand? This question protects you from trying to prepare too much. Suppose someone asks, do you think social media is helpful or harmful? Many possible ideas may enter your mind. You might think about communication, misinformation, wasted time, business opportunities, entertainment, or mental health. If you try to organize every idea before beginning, your answer will become trapped inside preparation. Choose one direction. Perhaps your main message is that social media can be helpful when people use it carefully. That is enough. You now have a destination for your first sentence. I think social media can be helpful if we use it wisely. Once this sentence has created direction, you can explain your reason, give an example, or mention the opposite side. Your answer grows naturally because the central message is already clear. Meaning must come before vocabulary. Learners often reverse this order by searching for impressive words before deciding what they actually want to say. They may remember expressions such as significant impact, essential factor, or negative consequences, but those expressions do not automatically create a useful answer. Strong communication begins with a clear idea expressed in accessible language. If the meaning is uncertain, advanced vocabulary will only decorate the confusion. If the meaning is clear, even simple vocabulary can carry power. When someone asks what makes a good friend, you do not need to search immediately for words such as trustworthiness, loyalty, or emotional support. First, choose the message. A good friend stays with you during difficult times. Then express it naturally. For me, a good friend is someone who does not leave when life becomes difficult. This sentence is not weak because it uses familiar words. It is strong because the meaning is honest, clear, and complete. The third second belongs to the opening. Once you know your main message, choose the smallest sentence or phrase that allows you to enter the answer. This opening is not supposed to carry everything you want to say, it is simply a bridge that moves you from silence into speech. Useful openings include, I think, for me, in my experience, the main reason is, from what I have seen, it depends, I would say, and the first thing that comes to mind is. These expressions are valuable because they are flexible and familiar. They give your mouth something reliable to say while your mind prepares the details that follow. When the opening becomes automatic, you no longer need to create every answer from complete silence. You have a doorway, and once you step through it, the rest of the message becomes easier to develop. Some learners fear that using familiar openings will make their English sound repetitive. At the beginning of fluency training, repetition is not an enemy. Repetition builds automaticity. You learned many actions in life by repeating the same movement until it required less conscious effort. Spoken English develops in the same way. If the phrase, I think the main reason is, helps you begin 20 different answers, use it. Your purpose is not to impress listeners with a new opening every time. Your purpose is to train your thoughts to enter English smoothly. As your confidence grows, your collection of openings will naturally expand. You will begin saying, the way I see it, one possible explanation is, what matters most to me is, or there are several reasons, but the biggest one is. Variety should grow from confidence and experience, not from pressure. Consider what happens when someone asks, what would you like to improve about yourself? Without a clear method, you might begin translating a complicated answer about discipline, confidence, health, or communication. You may reject several sentences while the listener waits. With the 3-second habit, the process becomes manageable. During the first second, breathe and accept that you do not need an immediate perfect response. During the second, choose one central idea. You want to become more disciplined. During the third, choose an opening. One thing I would like to improve is my discipline. Now you are speaking. You can continue by saying, sometimes I make good plans, but I do not follow them consistently. I want to become someone who finishes what he starts. The full answer was not ready when you opened your mouth. It developed one sentence at a time because your first sentence gave it a direction. This is an important secret of natural conversation. Speakers often discover the complete shape of their answer while they are giving it. They do not always prepare every word in advance. They begin with a central thought, observe where the thought leads, and adjust as they continue. English learners sometimes expect themselves to perform a more difficult task than ordinary speakers perform. They believe they must see the entire answer before saying the first word. That expectation creates hesitation because the mind is being asked to produce a finished speech inside a moving conversation. Release yourself from that burden. You only need enough clarity for the next sentence. After speaking that sentence, focus on the one that naturally follows. Fluency is built through connected steps, not through the instant creation of a perfect paragraph. A useful structure for developing an answer is the three-part response: state the idea, explain the reason, and give an example. This structure works for a remarkable number of everyday questions. If someone asks, "Is it better to live in a city or a village?" you can begin with your idea: "I would prefer to live in a city," then add the reason. The main reason is that cities usually provide more educational and professional opportunities. Finally, give an example. For example, it is often easier to find specialized courses, better transportation, and a wider variety of jobs. You did not need to prepare all three parts during the pause. The 3 seconds were used only to choose the first idea. Once the idea was spoken, the reason and example followed a familiar path. Another helpful structure is past, present, and future. This is especially useful when someone asks about your experiences, progress, habits, or plans. If you are asked, "How has your English changed?" you can say, "In the past, I could understand basic English, but I was afraid to speak. Now I practice answering questions aloud every day so I feel more comfortable. In the future, I want to speak confidently in professional conversations." The structure guides your thoughts without requiring memorized content. It helps you continue because you always know what kind of information comes next. These structures are not cages that make your English artificial. They are training supports that give your ideas order until organizing an answer becomes more natural. You can also use the opinion, reason, contrast structure. Begin with what you believe, explain why you believe it, and then recognize another possibility. If someone asks whether working from home is better than working in an office, you might answer, "I think working from home is better for people who need flexibility because it saves traveling time and allows them to organize their day. However, office work may be better for people who need direct communication and enjoy working around others." This answer sounds balanced and thoughtful, but it begins with one simple decision made during the 3-second pause: your general opinion. You do not need to create complexity immediately. Complexity can grow after clarity has been established. There will also be times when you do not understand the question completely. The 3-second habit does not require you to pretend that you understand. Confidence includes the ability to request clarification without embarrassment. You can say, "Could you repeat that, please?" Do you mean, "Could you explain the last part?" Or, "I am not sure I understood the question correctly." These phrases keep you inside the conversation. Silence caused by confusion often feels much worse than a polite request for help. Even highly fluent speakers ask others to repeat themselves when the sound is unclear, the subject is unfamiliar, or the wording is confusing. Asking for clarification is not proof that your English is weak. It is proof that you care about understanding the message before responding. Sometimes you understand every word in the question but need more time to develop an opinion. In that situation, use a natural thinking phrase instead of becoming completely silent. You can say, "That is an interesting question. I have never thought about that before. Let me think for a moment," or "There are several ways to look at it." These phrases should not become empty habits that appear before every answer, but they are useful when a question genuinely requires thought. They communicate that you are engaged in preparing a response. More importantly, they give you additional seconds without creating panic. The conversation remains alive because your listener understands what is happening. You may also face questions that are too personal, uncomfortable, or inappropriate. Fluency does not mean that you must answer everything. You can protect your boundaries in clear English by saying, "I would rather not discuss that. That is a little personal. I am not comfortable answering that question," or "I prefer to keep that private." This is another form of successful communication. The purpose of English is not only to provide information, it is also to express needs, preferences, limits, and choices. Learning how to decline an answer confidently can be just as important as learning how to give one. During the 3 seconds, resist the temptation to translate word by word. Translation may still occur naturally, especially when you are discussing an unfamiliar subject, but it should not control the entire response. Instead of building a complete sentence in your native language, reduce the message to a small idea or mental image. If someone asks you to describe your hometown, do not silently write a perfect description in another language. Picture the place. Think of one quality. It is peaceful. Then begin. My hometown is a peaceful place. Next, picture what makes it peaceful. Perhaps there is less traffic, people know one another, and the surroundings are green. These images can lead directly into English sentences. Meaning becomes the source of your words, reducing your dependence on translation. Visual thinking can be especially powerful for stories and personal experiences. Suppose someone asks what happened during your last journey. Instead of translating a prepared story, replay the experience like a short film inside your mind. See where you were, who was with you, what went wrong, and how the situation ended. Then describe one scene at a time. Last month, I traveled with my friends. We left early in the morning, but our car developed a problem on the way. We had to wait for almost 2 hours before someone helped us. The images give your answer order. You are not trying to remember an English essay. You are describing something you can see internally. The 3-second habit also teaches you to separate preparation from correction. Preparation happens before the first sentence, but correction should not control every word while you are speaking. If you monitor grammar too aggressively, your attention becomes divided between communicating and inspecting. This makes your delivery slow and uncertain. Allow the sentence to come out, and correct only when the mistake changes your meaning or when the correction appears easily. If you say, "Yesterday I go to the market," you may quickly adjust, "Yesterday I went to the market." Then continue the story. Do not stop and punish yourself mentally. The correction has already served its purpose. Returning to your message protects the flow and teaches you that mistakes can be handled without destroying the conversation. When you cannot remember a particular word, do not allow that missing word to control the entire answer. Use description, comparison, purpose, or example to communicate around it. If you forget the word umbrella, you might say, "the thing we use when it rains." If you forget appointment, you can say, "a planned meeting with the doctor." If you cannot remember generous, you can describe the person as someone who likes to share and help others. This ability is one of the strongest signs of practical fluency because it keeps communication moving. Even fluent speakers occasionally forget words. Their advantage is not that memory never fails, it is that they know how to continue when it does. You should prepare a personal collection of reliable sentence starters for different speaking situations. For opinions, practice "I believe," "in my opinion," and "the way I see it." For experiences, practice "I remember when," "in my experience," "on," "something similar happened to me." For reasons, practice "the main reason is," "this is mostly because," and "one important factor is." For uncertainty, practice "I am not completely sure, but," "as far as I know," and "it might depend on." For disagreement, practice "I understand that point, but," "I see it differently because," and "that may be true in some situations." However, these openings are not complete answers, they are launch points that reduce the distance between thought and speech. Practice these expressions aloud until your mouth knows their rhythm. Silent recognition is not enough. When you repeatedly say "the main reason is," the phrase becomes easier to retrieve during a real conversation. It begins functioning as one complete unit instead of 4 separate words that must be selected individually. Fluent speech contains many of these familiar language units. Expressions such as "to be honest," "at the same time," "for example," "on the other hand," and "it depends on the situation" can be retrieved as complete patterns. Building a collection of such patterns reduces the amount of language your mind must create from zero. You still choose your meaning freely, but the structure carrying that meaning becomes increasingly automatic. You can strengthen the habit by practicing unexpected questions rather than preparing only familiar answers. Ask a friend to give you random topics, use question cards, pause an interview before the guest answers, or select questions from daily conversations. When a question appears, follow the same process. Calm the body, choose the message, select an opening, and begin. Do not allow yourself to write a script first. The purpose is to train real-time retrieval. Some answers will be awkward, but awkward practice is more useful than perfect preparation when your goal is spontaneous speaking. Recording your responses can reveal whether you are truly using the 3 seconds well. Listen to the beginning of each answer. Did you spend the pause searching for perfection, or did you choose one clear idea? Did your first sentence answer the question directly, or did you use several empty phrases because you were unsure what to say? Did you begin calmly, or did you rush into the sentence and lose control halfway through? Choose one improvement at a time. You might focus on making your opening sentence more direct, slowing your first 5 words, or adding a reason after every opinion. Small improvements repeated consistently will transform your speaking more effectively than trying to repair everything in one session. You should also practice different lengths of answers. Give a 10-second response, then answer the same question for 30 seconds, and finally speak about it for 1 minute. The central idea may remain the same, but each version requires a different amount of support. For a 10-second answer to "What is your favorite time of day?" you might say, "My favorite time is early morning because everything feels quiet and I can think clearly." For 30 seconds, add details about your routine. For 1 minute, include an example, compare mornings with evenings, and explain how that time affects your mood. This exercise teaches you that fluent answers can expand from one simple beginning. You do not need a different method for long speaking. You need to learn how to support the first clear idea. In real conversations, the listener may interrupt, disagree, or ask a follow-up question before you finish. Do not view this as failure. Conversation is shared, not performed by one person. Listen to the new direction and use the 3-second habit again. If someone says, "But what about people who cannot work from home?" you can pause, choose your main response, and say, "That is a fair point. Working from home is not possible for every profession." Your preparation is flexible because it is based on meaning rather than memorized sentences. A memorized answer can collapse when the conversation changes, but a clear thinking process can adapt. The habit becomes even more effective when your attention moves away from yourself and toward the message. Many learners listen to their own voice so critically that they stop listening to the conversation. They wonder whether their accent sounds strange, whether the listener noticed a mistake, or whether their answer seems intelligent. This self-observation uses attention that should be helping them communicate. During the 3 seconds, direct your focus outward. What did the person ask? What do they genuinely want to know? What information, feeling, or opinion can you share? When communication becomes more important than performance, your English begins to feel lighter. You stop treating every sentence as a public test and begin using language for its real purpose, connecting one mind with another. Do not expect the 3-second process to feel natural immediately. At first, you may need to remember each stage deliberately. Breathe, choose, begin. This conscious effort is part of building the habit. With repetition, the stages will start blending together. A question will arrive, your body will remain calmer, your mind will choose a direction, and a familiar opening will appear without a long internal discussion. Eventually, many everyday questions will require less than 3 seconds because the connection between meaning and speech has become stronger. The goal is not to count exactly 3 seconds forever. The goal is to use those seconds as a training space until a calm and direct response becomes your natural pattern. From now on, when someone speaks to you in English, do not use the first moment to judge yourself. Use it to prepare yourself. During the first second, breathe and stay present. During the second, decide what matters most in your answer. During the third, choose a simple opening and trust yourself enough to begin. Let the next sentence emerge from the one you are already speaking. If a word disappears, describe it. If the question is unclear, request clarification. If you need more time, use a natural thinking phrase. If you make a mistake, correct it calmly or continue without allowing shame to take control. These choices turn 3 ordinary seconds into a powerful daily training system. The pause that once contained panic can become the place where confidence begins, the place where thought finds direction, and the place where the English inside you finally receives permission to become your spoken voice. Chapter 3. Build fluency with small answers. Many English learners believe fluency begins when they can produce long, impressive, perfectly organized answers, but this belief often becomes the very reason they remain silent. They imagine a fluent speaker as someone who can talk for several minutes without hesitating, forgetting a word, correcting a sentence, or losing direction. Because they cannot yet perform at that level, they assume they are not ready to speak. They continue collecting vocabulary, studying grammar, watching lessons, and waiting for a future moment when everything will finally come together. But spoken fluency does not arrive as one dramatic transformation. It grows through hundreds of small moments in which you successfully understand a question, choose a message, express it clearly, and remain connected to the conversation. A short answer may look unimportant, yet every short answer trains the exact abilities that longer speaking requires. It teaches your mind to retrieve vocabulary under pressure, organize meaning quickly, form sentences in real time, and trust your voice enough to continue. Before you can speak confidently for 5 minutes, you must become comfortable speaking for 5 seconds. A small answer is not an incomplete answer, it is a clear response built around one manageable idea. If someone asks whether you enjoy reading, you do not need to discuss the history of your reading habits, name every book you have read, explain the benefits of literature, and provide a detailed opinion about modern education. You can begin with, "Yes, I enjoy reading because it helps me relax." That sentence answers the question, communicates a personal idea, and gives the listener something to respond to. If you feel ready, you can add, "I usually read personal development books before going to sleep." Your answer has now become richer, but it still grew from one small and stable beginning. This is how natural conversation usually develops. One person offers a thought, the other person responds, a follow-up question appears, and the subject gradually expands. You are not expected to deliver a complete speech every time someone invites you to speak. The pressure to create long answers often comes from classroom experiences. Learners are asked to speak about a topic for 1 or 2 minutes, answer examination questions, or demonstrate as much vocabulary as possible. These activities can be useful, but they sometimes create the impression that every response must sound like a formal presentation. Real conversation is different. People exchange short reactions, incomplete thoughts, questions, clarifications, examples, and stories. Some answers are long because the subject requires detail, while others contain only one sentence. Fluency includes the ability to choose the appropriate amount of language for the moment. Speaking for too long when a simple answer is enough does not make you more fluent. It can make your message less clear. The goal is not to produce the greatest number of words. The goal is to communicate the right meaning with enough detail to keep the interaction alive. Small answers also reduce the number of decisions your mind must make at one time. When you attempt to prepare a long response, you must choose several ideas, decide their order, find transitions, remember vocabulary, control grammar, and predict how the answer should end. This creates heavy mental pressure before you have spoken a single word. A small answer asks your mind to do something far more manageable. Select one idea and express it in one complete sentence. Once that sentence is spoken, your mind receives new space. You can decide whether to add a reason, provide an example, ask a question, or stop and allow the other person to respond. Instead of carrying the weight of the entire answer from the beginning, you build it one piece at a time. Think of spoken English as a path appearing beneath your feet rather than a road you must completely construct before taking the first step. You only need enough language for the sentence you are currently speaking. When that sentence is complete, the next part often becomes easier to see. Suppose someone asks, "What do you normally do on weekends?" You might begin, "I usually spend time with my family." Once you hear yourself say that sentence, related details naturally become available. "We sometimes go out for dinner, but most weekends we stay at home and talk." Another thought may follow, "I also try to prepare for the coming week." The answer was not sitting inside your mind as a finished paragraph. It developed through connected ideas, and each completed sentence helped create the next one. This process is important because fluency depends on forward movement. When learners attempt to perfect every sentence before speaking, they repeatedly stop the movement of thought. They create a sentence, inspect it, change one word, reconsider the tense, search for a better expression, and then return to the beginning. By the time the sentence is ready, confidence has weakened and the conversation feels more difficult. Small answers teach you to value completion. You choose a simple sentence, speak it, and allow it to be finished. That completion gives you a small psychological victory. Your mind receives evidence that it can respond in English without disaster. When these victories accumulate, hesitation begins losing its power. Your first training goal should be the one-sentence answer. Choose questions from ordinary life and answer each one with a single complete sentence. If the question is, "What time do you usually wake up?" say, "I usually wake up at 7 because I like having a quiet start to my day." If the question is, "Do you prefer tea or coffee?" say, "I prefer tea because it feels lighter and helps me relax." If the question is, "What skill would you like to learn?" say, "I would like to improve my public speaking because I want to express my ideas confidently." Each response contains a direct answer and a little supporting meaning. The sentences do not need to be complicated. Their purpose is to build a reliable connection between question, thought, and spoken response. While practicing one-sentence answers, pay attention to completeness rather than complexity. A complete answer usually contains enough information for the listener to understand your basic meaning. Saying only tea may technically answer the question, but I prefer tea because it helps me relax, gives the interaction more life. At the same time, do not force several ideas into one overloaded sentence. Learners sometimes believe that longer grammar structures sound more advanced, so they connect too many thoughts with and, because, but, and which, until the sentence becomes difficult to control. It is better to say, I prefer tea because it helps me relax. I usually drink it in the evening, than to create one long sentence that loses direction halfway through. Clear sentence boundaries give both your mind and your listener room to breathe. After one sentence answers become comfortable, move to a two-part response, answer, and reason. The first sentence states your position, preference, experience, or decision. The second explains why. If someone asks, "Would you like to live in another country?" you can say, "Yes, I would like to live in another country for a few years. I think the experience would help me become more independent and understand a different culture." If someone asks, "Do you enjoy working in a team?" you can say, "I enjoy teamwork when everyone contributes." Sharing ideas often helps people find better solutions than they would find alone. This structure prevents your answer from becoming empty while keeping it manageable. The next stage is the three-part response: answer, reason, and example. This is one of the most useful speaking structures because it can support conversations, interviews, examinations, meetings, and presentations. Imagine that someone asks, "Why is learning English important to you?" Begin with the direct answer: "Learning English is important to me because it can create better opportunities." Add the reason: "It allows me to communicate with more people and access information that may not be available in my first language." Then provide an example. For example, many professional courses and international job opportunities require strong English communication. The answer sounds organized because every part has a clear purpose. You did not need unusually advanced vocabulary. The strength came from the progression of meaning. An example is particularly valuable because it transforms a general statement into something the listener can understand more clearly. If you say technology makes life easier, the idea is broad. Adding, for example, "I can attend an online class without traveling to another city," makes the idea concrete. If you say exercise improves my mood, the listener understands the general claim. But adding, "After a short morning walk, I usually feel calmer and more focused at work," gives the statement a personal shape. Examples also help you continue speaking because they draw language from real or imaginable situations. You do not need to invent abstract arguments when you can describe something specific. Personal examples are often easier than general ones because your memory already contains the necessary details. When asked whether failure can be useful, you could offer a broad philosophical answer, but you may speak more naturally by recalling an experience. "I think failure can be useful because it shows us what needs to change. I once prepared poorly for an important presentation and became confused while speaking. That experience taught me to practice aloud instead of only reading my notes." Your language becomes more engaging because it carries an event, a consequence, and a lesson. More importantly, you are not searching through unfamiliar information. You are expressing something you already understand deeply. Small answers can also be developed through the what, why, and how pattern. Begin by stating what you believe or do, explain why it matters, and describe how it works in your life. If the topic is maintaining motivation, you might say, "I keep my goals small and specific. This helps me stay motivated because large goals can feel overwhelming. I do it by choosing one task every morning that I must complete before the day ends." This structure works especially well when discussing habits, advice, routines, and personal methods. It gives your answer direction without making it sound memorized. Another useful pattern is situation, action, and result. This is valuable when describing experiences or answering professional questions. If someone asks how you handled a difficult problem, you might say, "Our team once had to complete a project with very little time. I divided the work into smaller tasks and checked our progress every few hours. As a result, we finished the project before the deadline and avoided several mistakes." The response is clear because the listener can follow what happened, what you did, and what changed. Once again, the answer grows from small, connected parts rather than one complicated block of language. When learning these structures, do not memorize complete answers unless you are preparing for a specific situation that genuinely requires them. Memorizing every word can create a temporary feeling of confidence, but that confidence may disappear as soon as the question changes. If you prepare an answer to "Why do you want this job?" and the interviewer asks, "What attracted you to our company?" your memorized script may no longer fit naturally. It is more useful to remember the structure and the main ideas. You can then adapt your language to the exact question. Flexible speaking is stronger than perfect recitation because real conversations rarely follow the script you imagined. A common mistake is to believe that short answers must contain advanced vocabulary to sound intelligent. This causes learners to replace familiar words with expressions they do not fully control. They may use an advanced word incorrectly, pronounce it with uncertainty, or become so focused on remembering it that the rest of the sentence collapses. Clear language is not childish language. Simple words can communicate complex experiences when they are arranged thoughtfully. Consider the sentence, "I stayed because I believed things would change, but eventually I understood that staying was hurting me." Most of its words are basic, yet the meaning is emotionally strong. Your power as a speaker comes from what you communicate, not from how many rare words you can place inside one response. This does not mean you should avoid advanced vocabulary forever. New words become useful when they are connected to meanings and situations you genuinely understand. Instead of collecting long lists, choose a few expressions that improve answers you already give. If you frequently say "it helped me a lot," you might learn "it made a significant difference." If you often say "I can change when something happens," you might practice "I can adapt to changing situations." Use each new expression in several personal answers until it feels comfortable. Vocabulary becomes active through repeated spoken use, not through recognition alone. The same principle applies to grammar. You do not need to display every tense or complex structure in every response. Choose grammar that matches your meaning. If you are describing a finished event, use the past. If you are discussing a routine, use the present. If you are explaining a plan, use the future form that feels natural. Trying to include advanced grammar merely to sound fluent can make your speech less stable. Accuracy becomes more reliable when grammar serves communication instead of becoming a performance. You can gradually increase the grammatical range of a small answer by repeating it in different ways. Begin with, "I study English every evening." Add a reason. "I study English every evening because that is when I have free time." Add contrast. "I study English every evening, although I sometimes practice in the morning on weekends." Add a result. "Since I started following this routine, I have become more confident when speaking." Each version develops one new feature while preserving the central meaning. This form of expansion teaches you how grammar grows around an idea rather than forcing you to invent unrelated textbook sentences. Your daily speaking practice should begin with questions that are close to your life. Familiar subjects reduce the pressure of finding content, allowing you to focus on expressing yourself. Speak about your family, routines, work, studies, interests, goals, challenges, favorite places, memorable experiences, and future plans. Ask yourself questions such as, "What part of my day do I enjoy most? What habit has improved my life? What is something I want to change? Who has influenced me? And what would I do if I had more free time?" Pause for 3 seconds, give one direct sentence, add a reason, and include an example. Do not write first. Let your spoken answer reveal where your fluency needs strengthening. After familiar topics become easier, move toward opinions that require more organization. Discuss whether people should work from home, whether children should use smartphones, whether money creates happiness, whether social media improves relationships, or whether failure is necessary for success. Keep the same small answer method. Choose one position, give one reason, and support it with one example. You are not required to solve the entire issue. You are practicing the ability to build a clear contribution to a conversation. Some questions do not have a simple yes or no answer, and admitting complexity can make your response more natural. You can begin with "it depends," but you should not stop there. Explain what it depends on. If someone asks whether university education is necessary for success, you might say, "I think it depends on the profession. Some careers require formal qualifications, while others depend more on practical skills and experience." For example, a doctor needs university training, but someone building an online business may learn through direct practice. The opening is cautious, but the answer still provides clear meaning. Learning how to disagree in a small and respectful way is another essential part of fluency. You do not need a long argument to express a different view. Begin by recognizing the other position, then state your own. I understand why some people believe that, but I see it differently. Add one reason. In my experience, strict rules do not always create discipline because people may follow them only when someone is watching. A respectful disagreement keeps the conversation open. Your goal is not to defeat the other speaker, it is to contribute your perspective clearly. Small answers can help you manage emotionally difficult conversations as well. When feelings are strong, even your first language may become harder to organize. In English, the pressure can feel greater. Use short, direct sentences that protect your meaning. I felt hurt by what happened. I need some time to think. I understand your intention, but the way you spoke affected me. I do not want to argue, I want us to understand each other. These sentences are not linguistically complicated, yet they communicate boundaries and emotions with maturity. Fluency is not only the ability to discuss comfortable topics, it is also the ability to remain clear when the conversation matters deeply. Another advantage of small answers is that they create space for listening. Learners sometimes focus so strongly on preparing their next long response that they stop hearing what the other person is actually saying. They wait for a chance to deliver the language they prepared instead of participating in the conversation unfolding in front of them. Shorter responses allow a natural exchange. You answer, listen to the reaction, and then decide what needs to be said next. This makes your English more responsive and less mechanical. Listening carefully can also provide language for your answer. The speaker's question may contain vocabulary or grammar that you can reuse. If someone asks, "What motivates you to continue learning English?" you can begin, "What motivates me most is the possibility of communicating confidently." If someone asks, "How has technology changed the way people work?" you can say, "Technology has changed the way people work by making communication faster and more flexible." Reusing part of the question is not cheating. It is a natural conversation strategy that gives your response structure while ensuring that you remain connected to the topic. Follow-up questions can become easier when you treat each one as a new small answer opportunity. Suppose you say that you enjoy traveling and the listener asks, "What do you enjoy most about it?" Do not attempt to summarize everything you love about travel. Choose one aspect. I enjoy experiencing places that feel completely different from my daily environment. If they ask for an example, give one memory. The conversation grows through several manageable responses instead of one overwhelming performance. You can practice this by creating question chains. Begin with a basic question such as, "What is your favorite hobby?" After answering, ask yourself a related follow-up. When did you begin? Why do you enjoy it? How often do you do it? What has it taught you? Would you recommend it to others? Each answer can remain short, but together they form a detailed conversation. This exercise develops flexibility because you explore one subject from several directions without memorizing a long speech. Retelling is another powerful way to develop small answers into connected speech. Read a short story, watch a brief video, or listen to a news item, then explain it using 3 stages. First, summarize it in 1 sentence. Second, explain the main details in 3 sentences. Third, give your opinion in 1 or 2 sentences. This teaches you to separate essential information from supporting information. It also trains you to control the length of your response depending on what the listener needs. For example, after watching a video about a person who changed careers, your 1-sentence summary might be, "The video was about a woman who left a secure job to start her own business." Your expanded explanation might be, "She had worked in the same company for 10 years but no longer felt fulfilled. She began developing her business during the evenings before finally leaving her job. Although the first year was difficult, the business eventually became successful." Your opinion might be, "I admired her courage, but I also liked that she prepared carefully before taking the risk." You have now created a clear spoken response from manageable pieces. Recording these exercises will help you notice whether your small answers are becoming stronger. Do not listen only for mistakes, listen for meaning. Did you answer the question directly? Was your central idea easy to understand? Did your reason support that idea? Did your example make the answer clearer? Did you stop because the answer was complete or because fear interrupted you? These questions produce more useful improvement than simply counting grammar errors. When reviewing a recording, choose one answer and improve it through repetition. Your first attempt might be, "I like mornings because it is good and I can do work." Do not criticize yourself. Identify what the sentence needs. A clearer second attempt could be, "I like mornings because my mind feels fresh and I can concentrate on important work." A third attempt might add an example. "I usually complete my most difficult task before breakfast because there are fewer distractions." Repetition allows you to refine your message without creating the pressure of a completely new topic each time. However, do not repeat one answer until it becomes a rigid script. After improving it, change one element. Answer the same question with a different reason, use another example, or speak from the opposite position. If you always say that mornings are best because you can concentrate, try explaining why evenings may be better for creative work. This flexibility ensures that you are training expression rather than memorization. Time limits can help you expand answers gradually. Begin with 15 seconds, then 30 seconds, and eventually 60 seconds. During the 15-second version, give your answer and reason. During the 30-second version, add an example. During the 60-second version, include contrast, experience, or a conclusion. The first clear sentence should remain the foundation. Longer speaking does not require abandoning simplicity. It requires connecting several simple parts effectively. Suppose the question is it important to spend time alone? In 15 seconds, you might say, "Yes, I think spending time alone is important because it gives people space to understand their thoughts and recover from stress." In 30 seconds, you can add, "For example, when I have had a difficult week, a quiet evening helps me think clearly and return to my responsibilities with more energy." In 60 seconds, you might recognize the opposite side. "However, too much isolation can become unhealthy, so I believe the goal is balance rather than avoiding people completely." The longer answer feels mature because its small sections work together. Transitions help these sections connect smoothly. Begin with a small set that you can use confidently. Because, for example, however, also, as a result, and that is why. These words guide the listener through your thinking. Do not attempt to use many formal transitions simply to sound advanced. Expressions such as moreover, nevertheless, and consequently can be valuable. But everyday speech often sounds more natural with simpler connectors. Choose the transition that clearly expresses the relationship between your ideas. Pauses between sections are also natural. You can finish your main sentence, take a brief breath, and then add the reason. You do not need to fill every moment with sound. Learners often use repeated fillers such as you know, actually, or like because silence makes them nervous. A controlled pause sounds more confident than a stream of empty words. It also gives your mind time to choose the next small part of the answer. If you regularly lose direction in longer responses, create a mental map with only 3 points. Before speaking, decide on the main idea. After beginning, remember that you need one reason and one example. Do not attempt to remember complete sentences. The 3 points are enough to guide you. This reduces memory pressure while allowing your language to remain spontaneous. You may sometimes begin an answer and realize that the idea is difficult to explain. Instead of stopping, simplify or restart calmly. You can say, "Let me put that more simply. What I mean is," or perhaps a better way to explain it is, these repair phrases are valuable because real speaking is not always perfectly organized. The ability to repair an unclear sentence is part of fluency. You do not need to hide every moment of difficulty. You need to know how to move through it. Imagine saying, "I think people are more connected, but also not connected because of technology." Rather than becoming embarrassed, you can clarify, "What I mean is that technology allows people to contact each other easily, but those conversations are not always emotionally meaningful." The second sentence repairs the first and may communicate the idea more effectively than a memorized answer would. Your initial struggle did not destroy the conversation. It led you toward greater clarity. Small answers also teach you how to finish. Some learners continue adding sentences because they fear that stopping will expose their lack of fluency. They repeat the same reason, give unnecessary details, or lose their original point. A clear ending shows control. You can finish by restating the main idea. That is why I believe daily practice is more valuable than occasional intensive study. You can finish with a result. Because of that experience, I now prepare much more carefully. You can also simply stop after the example when the answer already feels complete. Not every response requires a formal conclusion. In conversation, you can pass the subject back to the other person by asking, "What about you? Have you ever experienced something similar, or do you see it the same way?" This transforms your answer into an exchange and reduces the pressure to keep speaking alone. Asking relevant questions is part of fluency because communication requires curiosity as well as expression. Do not become dependent on another person for all your speaking practice. You can train small answers alone at any time. Describe your decisions while making them. "I am going to finish this task first because it requires the most concentration." React to something you watch. "I agree with the speaker's main point, but I think the solution is too simple." Reflect on your day. "The best part of today was completing something I had been delaying." These small acts turn English from a subject you visit occasionally into a language you actively use. You can create a daily routine containing 10 questions. Give each answer 3 versions, 1 sentence, 3 sentences, and 1 minute. This may sound repetitive, but it develops control. The 1-sentence version teaches clarity, the 3-sentence version teaches structure, and the 1-minute version teaches expansion. You will learn that a strong long answer is simply a clear small answer supported by relevant details. Track your progress by noticing what has become easier. Perhaps you begin answering without translating every phrase. Perhaps your reasons appear more quickly. Perhaps you can give examples without losing your main idea. Perhaps a question that once created complete silence now receives a simple but immediate answer. These changes may feel small, yet they are direct signs that fluency is developing. Do not measure progress only by speed. Speaking quickly without clarity is not the goal. A thoughtful speaker may pause and still sound fluent because the message remains organized. Measure whether you can begin, continue, repair, and complete your thought. Measure whether fear controls fewer conversations. Measure whether the English you know is becoming easier to access. These abilities form a more meaningful picture of fluency than the number of words you can say in 1 minute. There will be moments when your answer remains extremely simple, especially when you are tired, nervous, or discussing an unfamiliar subject. Accept that variation. Your ability will not feel identical every day. Even in your first language, some conversations are easier than others. A simple answer given during a difficult moment still protects the habit of speaking. It keeps the doorway open. The greatest change occurs when you stop seeing small answers as evidence that your English is limited and begin seeing them as the building blocks of an unlimited speaking ability. Every confident response strengthens your speaking reflex. Every reason teaches your thoughts to develop. Every example connects language with experience. Every clarification shows that you can protect meaning when the first sentence is not enough. Every conclusion teaches you to complete an idea instead of abandoning it. You do not become fluent by waiting until long answers feel easy. You become fluent by making short answers so familiar that they naturally begin to grow. 1 sentence becomes 2. An answer receives a reason receives an example opens the door to a story leads to an opinion, and an opinion creates a deeper conversation. What once felt like an impossible wall of speech is revealed to be a series of small, manageable steps. From this moment forward, do not ask yourself whether you can speak English for 10 minutes without stopping. Ask whether you can answer 1 question with 1 clear sentence. Then ask whether you can explain why. Then offer 1 example. Stay with the idea long enough to complete it, but do not force it to become larger than it needs to be. Let fluency grow through completion, not pressure. The voice you want is not created in one extraordinary performance. It is created through ordinary answers spoken again and again with increasing clarity, courage, and control. Give yourself 3 seconds, choose 1 message, and speak 1 sentence that you can manage. Respect that sentence instead of judging its simplicity. It is not a small achievement. It is the beginning of the fluent speaker you are training yourself to become. Chapter 4. Stop translating the entire answer. Translation feels safe at the beginning because it gives your mind something familiar to hold. When someone asks you a question in English, your first language quickly appears inside your mind and tries to build the answer for you. It says, think here first, prepare everything here first, then carry it into English. This habit may help you understand basic meaning, but when you depend on it for speaking, it becomes a slow road. You are not answering once, you are answering twice. First, you create the response in your own language, then you try to rebuild it in English, and during that rebuilding process, your confidence begins to disappear. The problem is not that your first language is wrong. Your first language is powerful, beautiful, and deeply connected to your identity. The problem begins when it becomes the only gate through which every English sentence must pass. If every English answer must first be approved, translated, corrected, and rearranged in another language, your speaking will always feel delayed. Conversation does not wait for perfect translation. Conversation moves quickly, naturally, and sometimes unexpectedly. If your mind needs too many steps before producing one sentence, you will always feel behind. Imagine someone asks, "What did you do yesterday?" The answer could be simple: "Yesterday, I visited my friend and we talked for a long time." But the translating mind does not accept simplicity. It starts building a full answer in your first language. Then it tries to find the exact English version of every word. Then it worries about the tense. Then it asks whether the sentence sounds natural. Then it searches for a better word than talked. By the time you are ready, the answer feels heavy. What should have been a small response becomes a difficult mental task. To stop translating the entire answer, you must begin thinking in meaning, not in full sentences. Meaning is faster than translation. Meaning is the picture, feeling, or idea behind the words. When someone asks what you did yesterday, do not write a sentence in your first language inside your mind. See the scene. See yourself visiting your friend. See the conversation. Then speak from that meaning. I visited my friend yesterday. After that, add the next piece. We talked for a long time. You are not translating a finished paragraph. You are describing what you already understand. This is one of the biggest shifts in English fluency. Instead of asking, "How do I translate this sentence?" begin asking, "What am I trying to say?" These two questions create completely different results. The first question traps you inside word matching. The second question moves you toward communication. If your message is clear, your English can be simple and still successful. If your message is unclear, even advanced words will not save the answer. Many learners freeze because they are trying to translate exact expressions that do not move naturally into English. Every language has its own rhythm. Some phrases sound powerful in your first language but strange when translated directly. Some words carry emotions that do not have one perfect English match. Some sentence structures work beautifully in one language but become confusing in another. When you force English to follow the structure of your first language, your answer becomes slow and unnatural. You may know the idea, but the form becomes difficult. The solution is not to translate better. The solution is to simplify the message before speaking. If the original idea feels too large, reduce it. If the sentence feels too complicated, divide it. If one word is missing, describe it. If an expression does not translate, say the meaning in normal English. For example, instead of searching for a perfect emotional phrase, say, "I felt disappointed because I expected something better." Instead of struggling to translate a cultural expression, say, "It means that people should be careful before trusting someone." Simple English can carry deep meaning when you stop forcing exact translation. You must train your mind to connect daily life directly with English. This does not happen only during study time. It happens in small moments throughout the day. When you wake up, think, "I need to get ready." When you open your phone, think, "I should not waste too much time." When you eat, think, "This tastes good." When you feel tired, think, "I need some rest." These tiny sentences may look too easy, but they are building a direct road between experience and English. The more direct connections you create, the less your mind depends on translation. Do not wait until you can think about complex subjects in English. Start with ordinary thoughts. Ordinary thoughts are the foundation of natural speech. A fluent speaker spends most of the day using simple language for simple moments. "I am late. I need to call him. This is not working. Let me try again. I should finish this first." If these small sentences become automatic, your mind begins trusting English as a living language, not only as a subject. After daily thoughts, train direct answers. Ask yourself simple questions and answer without translating. What am I doing? I am preparing my work. Why am I doing it? Because I want to finish early. How do I feel? I feel tired, but I want to continue. This practice teaches your mind to move from question to meaning to English. At first, the answers may sound basic, but basic does not mean useless. Basic sentences are the bones of fluency. Without them, advanced speaking collapses. One powerful exercise is the object description method. Look at something near you and describe it in English without translating. If you see a cup, say, "This is my cup. It is on the table. It has tea inside. I use it every morning." If you see your phone, say, "My phone is charging. I use it for messages, videos, and work." This exercise seems simple, but it trains direct observation. Your eyes see the object, your mind understands it, and your mouth describes it in English. No full translation is needed. Another exercise is the action commentary method. As you move through your day, describe your actions quietly or aloud. I am opening the door. I am checking my messages. I am writing an idea. I am going outside. I am looking for my keys. These sentences are not for impressing anyone. They are for building speed. You are teaching your brain that English can attach itself directly to action. When speaking becomes connected to real life, it stops feeling like something artificial. For deeper fluency, use the emotion labeling method. Many learners can describe objects, routines, and plans, but they struggle to express feelings. Start naming emotions in simple English. I feel nervous. I feel proud. I feel confused. I feel peaceful. Then add a reason. I feel nervous because I have to speak in English. I feel proud because I finished my work. This practice is important because real conversation is not only about facts. People ask how you feel, what you think, what bothers you, what you hope for, and what matters to you. If emotions only exist in your first language, English will feel cold and limited. You can also practice opinion thinking without translation. Choose a topic and form one clear English opinion. Do not prepare a long answer. Say, "I think discipline is more important than motivation." Then explain it with simple English. Motivation changes every day, but discipline helps you continue. This direct opinion practice builds confidence because opinions often cause learners to freeze. They try to sound intelligent before they sound clear. Clarity must come first. When you stop translating, you will sometimes feel that your English sounds too simple. This is normal. Your first language may produce rich, emotional, complex ideas, while your English may initially express only the basic version of those ideas. Do not let this discourage you. You are not losing intelligence. You are building a new channel of expression. At first, that channel is narrow. With practice, it becomes wider. The goal is not to speak with your full personality on day one. The goal is to keep using English until more of your personality can pass through it. The danger is that many learners reject simple English because it does not feel equal to their real thoughts. They think, "This is not exactly what I mean, so I should not say it." But if you wait for exact expression every time, you will remain silent. Say the closest clear version first, then improve it. For example, you may begin with, "I was sad." Later you can say, "I felt disappointed." Later you can say, "I felt disappointed because I expected more support." Later you can say, "I felt disappointed because I expected more support from someone I trusted." Your expression becomes deeper through use, not through silence. Translation also slows you down because it makes you search for perfect word pairs. You think of one word in your language and then desperately search for its English equivalent. If you cannot find it, the whole sentence stops. Instead, train yourself to move around missing words. If you cannot remember responsibility, say "the things I have to do." If you cannot remember confident, say "not afraid to speak." If you cannot remember improve, say "make it better." This skill keeps communication alive. Fluency is not the ability to know every word. Fluency is the ability to keep expressing meaning when one word is missing. You should also stop translating grammar rules while speaking. Grammar is important, but live conversation is not the best moment to open every rule inside your mind. If you try to check tense, article, preposition, word order, and pronunciation before every sentence, you will speak like someone walking through a field of danger. Instead, practice grammar patterns until they become familiar phrases. Do not think present perfect structure requires have plus past participle. Practice sentences like, "I have learned a lot." "I have seen that before." "I have never tried it." "I have been working on my English." Repetition turns grammar into usable speech. Patterns are stronger than rules during conversation. A rule explains language, but a pattern carries language. If you have repeated "I would like to" many times, you can use it quickly. "I would like to improve my speaking." "I would like to visit another country." "I would like to ask one question." You are not building the sentence from zero. You are using a structure your mouth already knows. This is how English becomes faster. To reduce translation, create personal sentence patterns around your real life. I usually, I need to, I want to, I am trying to, I have been, I feel, I think, I decided to. These patterns appear again and again in daily speech. Fill them with your own words. I usually practice English at night. I need to become more consistent. I want to speak without fear. I am trying to answer faster. I have been working on my confidence. These are not random sentences. They are building blocks for your spoken identity in English. Another reason translation becomes harmful is that it makes you listen slowly. When someone speaks, you may translate their words into your language before understanding the message. Then you prepare your answer in your language and translate it back into English. This double translation creates a delay. To improve, practice listening for meaning directly. When you hear "What do you usually do after work?" do not translate every word. Understand the function of the question they are asking about your routine. Then answer from your routine. After work, I usually rest for a while and then spend time with my family. You respond to meaning, not to a translated sentence. You can practice this with videos. Listen to one sentence in English and pause. Do not translate it word by word. Ask yourself, what is the main idea? Then say the idea in simpler English. If the speaker says, many people underestimate the importance of consistent daily practice, you can say, daily practice is more important than many people think. This exercise trains your mind to process meaning directly and express it flexibly. It also teaches you that you do not need the exact same words to communicate the same idea. Retelling is another excellent anti-translation practice. Watch a short clip or read a short paragraph, then explain it in your own English. Do not copy the original sentences. Do not translate from your language. Use simple English to explain what happened, what the speaker said, and what you think about it. This builds independence. You are no longer depending on memorized wording. You are learning to rebuild meaning in English. A powerful daily routine is the 3-level answer practice. First, answer in very simple English. Second, answer with one extra detail. Third, answer with emotion or opinion. For the question, how was your day? Level 1 is, my day was busy. Level 2 is, my day was busy because I had a lot of work. Level 3 is, my day was busy but I feel satisfied because I finished something important. This method expands your English gradually without forcing translation. You must also accept that some translation will remain for a while. Do not become angry with yourself when your first language appears. It has been helping you think for your entire life. It will not disappear because you decided to speak English directly. The goal is not to destroy translation. The goal is to reduce your dependence on it. At first, you may translate full sentences. Later, you may translate only difficult words. Later, you may think mostly in meaning and use translation only when necessary. Progress is not instant freedom from translation. Progress is needing translation less often and for shorter moments. When you catch yourself translating, gently shorten the process. Instead of translating the whole answer, translate only the main idea. Instead of translating the main idea, picture it. Instead of finding the exact word, describe the meaning. These small changes train your mind to become faster without creating stress. You are not fighting your brain, you are guiding it toward a better habit. The 3-second habit is especially useful here. During those 3 seconds, do not build a full sentence in your first language. Use the first second to breathe, the second to choose the meaning, and the third to choose a simple English opening. If the question is, what kind of people inspire you, do not translate a complicated answer. Choose the meaning. Disciplined people inspire you. Start with, I feel inspired by disciplined people. Then add, they remind me that success is not only about talent. This is direct, clear, and strong. If the question is, what is your biggest challenge in English, choose the meaning. Speaking without hesitation. Start with, my biggest challenge is speaking without hesitation. Then add, I understand many things, but sometimes I pause too much when I need to answer. This answer is powerful because it is honest and easy to understand. You did not need a perfect translation, you needed a clear message. Direct English thinking becomes easier when you create a small English environment around yourself. Change some daily labels in your mind. Your room becomes my room, your work becomes my task, your plan becomes my schedule, your mistake becomes something I can fix. Use English for small notes, reminders, and personal reflections. Write simple lines such as, "Today I will practice for 10 minutes," "I need to speak slowly and clearly," or "I made progress today." These small English contacts keep the language active. Speak to yourself in English without waiting for a partner. Many learners say they cannot practice because they have no one to speak with. A partner helps, but your first training partner can be your own voice. Explain your plan, describe your feelings, retell your day, give your opinion, and answer imaginary questions. The purpose is not to create perfect conversations. The purpose is to reduce the distance between thought and English sound. When you finally speak with real people, do not try to impress them with translated complexity. Try to communicate clearly. If they understand you, the conversation is working. If they ask a follow-up question, your English is alive. If you make a mistake but continue, your fluency is growing. If you choose simple words and express a real idea, you are doing what language is meant to do. Over time, you will notice a change. Some English sentences will appear before your first language enters. Common responses will come faster. You will begin saying, "I think," "I feel," "I need," "I agree," "I am not sure" without translating each word. This is a major step. It means English is no longer only a subject stored in your memory. It is becoming a response system. The day you stop translating everything is not the day your first language disappears. It is the day English becomes strong enough to stand beside it. Your thoughts no longer need one path only. They begin finding another route, a faster route, a cleaner route, a route from meaning to voice. So when the next English question comes, do not panic and do not start building a perfect answer in another language. Pause for 3 seconds. Breathe. Choose the message. Open your mouth with the simplest English that carries that message. Let the answer grow sentence by sentence. Translation may still whisper in the background, but it no longer needs to control the conversation. Every direct sentence you speak is a step toward freedom. Every simple answer strengthens the road between your thoughts and your English voice. And one day, without forcing it, you will realize that English is no longer something you always translate. It is something you can finally use. Chapter 5. Use mistakes to strengthen your speaking reflex. One of the greatest misunderstandings in language learning is the belief that mistakes are proof of failure. Because of this belief, countless English learners spend years hiding from the very activity that would make them fluent. They avoid speaking until they feel ready. They avoid conversations until they feel confident. They avoid answering questions until they believe they can do so without making errors. Unfortunately, that day rarely arrives. Confidence is not something that appears before speaking. Confidence is something that grows because of speaking. In the same way, accuracy does not appear before mistakes. Accuracy develops through mistakes. Every fluent speaker you admire has made thousands of errors. The difference is not that they avoided mistakes. The difference is that they continued speaking long enough to learn from them. Think about how a child learns to walk. The child falls many times. No one watches those falls and concludes that walking is impossible. Everyone understands that falling is part of learning. Yet when adults learn English, they often treat mistakes as evidence that they should stop trying. A wrong tense, a forgotten word, an awkward sentence, or a pronunciation error suddenly feels like a personal failure. This reaction creates fear. Fear creates hesitation. Hesitation reduces speaking practice. Reduced practice slows improvement. The learner then sees slower improvement as proof that they lack ability, even though the real problem is not ability at all. The real problem is the relationship they have developed with mistakes. The truth is that mistakes are information. They are messages showing you where your English needs more training. If you say, "Yesterday I go to the market," your mistake is revealing something useful. It is telling you that your past tense pattern is not yet automatic. That information is valuable. It helps you focus your practice. Without mistakes, you would have far less information about what needs improvement. The error is not your enemy. The error is a signpost pointing toward growth. Unfortunately, many learners react to mistakes emotionally instead of educationally. They hear themselves make an error and immediately feel embarrassed. They begin judging themselves instead of observing the problem. Their attention moves away from communication and towards self-criticism. Instead of asking, "What can I learn from this?" they ask, "Why am I so bad at English?" These two questions produce completely different results. The first creates progress. The second creates discouragement. To build fluency, you must separate mistakes from identity. Making an error does not mean you are bad at English, it means you are learning English. These are not the same thing. A person who never makes mistakes may simply be avoiding situations that challenge them. Meanwhile, a learner who speaks daily, experiments with new vocabulary, expresses opinions, tells stories, and joins conversations will naturally produce more errors because they are actively using the language. Their mistakes are evidence of participation. When you begin using the 3-second habit consistently, you will probably notice more mistakes at first. This is normal. Previously, you may have spent a long time translating, checking, and preparing before speaking. Now you are responding more quickly. Because you are speaking sooner, some errors that were previously hidden will become visible. Do not see this as regression, it is actually progress. The mistakes were already there. You simply could not see them because you were speaking less often. Increased speaking reveals weaknesses, and revealed weaknesses can be improved. One of the most important skills you can develop is the ability to continue after making a mistake. Many learners stop immediately. They lose their train of thought, apologize repeatedly, and become more focused on the error than on the conversation itself. Imagine that you say, "My brother works in another city." A simple correction is enough. "My brother works in another city." Then continue your message. The conversation is still alive. Communication has not been destroyed. Most listeners care far more about understanding your meaning than counting your grammar errors. This ability to continue is what builds a speaking reflex. A reflex is something that happens quickly and naturally because it has been trained through repetition. If every mistake causes you to stop, your speaking reflex becomes weak. If mistakes are followed by calm correction and continued communication, your speaking reflex becomes stronger. Your brain learns that errors are not emergencies, they are normal parts of the process. Many learners imagine fluent speakers as people who never make mistakes. In reality, fluent speakers make mistakes all the time, even in their native language. They forget words, they restart sentences, they choose the wrong expression, they mispronounce something, they speak too quickly. They lose track of an idea. The difference is that they do not panic when these things happen. They repair the message and move forward. Fluency is not the absence of mistakes. Fluency is the ability to keep communicating despite them. This is why perfectionism is one of the most dangerous habits in language learning. Perfectionism sounds positive because it appears connected to high standards, but in practice, perfectionism often becomes fear disguised as excellence. The perfectionist learner wants every sentence to be correct before speaking it. They want every answer to sound natural. They want every word to be accurate. Because these conditions are impossible to maintain during real conversation, they end up speaking less and less. The opposite of perfectionism is not carelessness. The opposite of perfectionism is productive imperfection. Productive imperfection means allowing yourself to speak while still caring about improvement. You are not ignoring mistakes, you are simply refusing to let them stop you. You speak, notice the error, learn from it, and continue. This approach creates growth because communication remains active. Imagine two learners. The first learner speaks only when they feel certain. The second learner speaks every day, even when uncertain. After 6 months, the second learner will almost always be stronger. Why? Because fluency is a practical skill. Like driving, swimming, or playing an instrument, it develops through use. Knowledge helps, but knowledge alone is not enough. The person who practices imperfectly often improves faster than the person who studies perfectly but rarely acts. One useful exercise is the mistake journal. After speaking practice, write down only 3 mistakes that appeared repeatedly. Not 30 mistakes, not every error, just 3. For example, forgetting past tense endings, using he go instead of he goes, struggling to explain opinions. Then create a few sentences that target those areas. This method focuses your attention without overwhelming you. Trying to fix everything at once usually leads to frustration. Improving one pattern at a time creates steady progress. Another powerful exercise is deliberate risk-taking. Choose one new grammar pattern, vocabulary group, or speaking structure and use it during conversation. Expect mistakes. In fact, welcome them. If you are practicing the present perfect, use it repeatedly. I have learned, I have visited, I have noticed. Some sentences may be incorrect. That is acceptable. The goal is not flawless performance. The goal is strengthening the pathway between knowledge and speech. Mistakes also become less frightening when you realize how little other people focus on them. Most listeners are interested in your message. They want to know your opinion, experience, question, or story. They are not silently grading every sentence. Often the mistakes that feel enormous to you are barely noticed by the other person. You may spend the entire day thinking about a small grammar error while the listener forgets it within seconds. This is especially important when speaking with native speakers. Many learners feel intimidated because they assume native speakers expect perfection. In reality, most native speakers are simply trying to communicate. If your message is understandable, the conversation can continue successfully. Communication is the goal, perfection is not. You should also learn the difference between communication mistakes and growth mistakes. Communication mistakes block understanding, growth mistakes do not. If you say something that completely changes your intended meaning, clarification may be necessary. But many grammar errors do not prevent understanding. For example, saying "yesterday I go" instead of "yesterday I went" is still understandable in most situations. This does not mean you should ignore the error, it means you should keep perspective. The conversation remains successful even while improvement is needed. Pronunciation mistakes deserve the same balanced approach. Many learners become so worried about sounding perfect that they stop speaking naturally. Pronunciation matters because it affects understanding, but improvement comes through use. Speak clearly, listen carefully, and adjust over time. Do not wait for perfect pronunciation before allowing yourself to communicate. Another important lesson is that mistakes become smaller when speaking becomes more frequent. If you speak once a month, every error feels important because you have so few opportunities to practice. If you speak every day, individual mistakes lose their emotional power. They become ordinary parts of the learning process. The volume of practice changes your relationship with imperfection. Consider athletes. A basketball player who misses one shot does not leave the game. A musician who plays one wrong note does not stop the performance. They continue because they understand that one mistake is part of a larger process. English learners need the same mindset. A conversation is not ruined because one sentence was imperfect. Keep playing, keep speaking, keep moving forward. The 3-second habit supports this mindset beautifully. When a question arrives, your goal is not to create a flawless answer. Your goal is to create a real answer. Breathe. Choose your message. Begin speaking. If a mistake appears, deal with it calmly and continue. This approach keeps your attention focused on communication rather than fear. As you practice, you will notice something surprising. Many mistakes disappear naturally through repetition. Sentences that once felt difficult become familiar. Patterns that required conscious effort become automatic. Corrections that you once had to think about begin happening instantly. This is one reason why speaking practice is so powerful. Repeated exposure gradually strengthens the correct patterns. However, some mistakes will remain longer. These persistent errors are normal. Every learner has them. Do not interpret their presence as failure. Instead, use them as guides. They reveal exactly where additional attention is needed. Improvement is often uneven. Some areas progress quickly, while others require more time. Patience is part of the process. One useful question to ask yourself after speaking practice is not, "How many mistakes did I make?" but rather, "Did I communicate my message?" This question shifts your attention toward the real purpose of language. If people understood your meaning, the interaction succeeded. Now you can improve accuracy gradually while preserving confidence. Remember that confidence grows from evidence. Every time you speak despite uncertainty, you create evidence that you can handle English conversations. Every time you recover from a mistake, you create evidence that errors are survivable. Every time you continue after forgetting a word, you create evidence that communication can continue even when language is imperfect. These experiences slowly change your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who studies English and start seeing yourself as someone who uses English. This shift is powerful because users improve differently than observers. Users learn through action. Users expect occasional mistakes. Users trust that ability grows through practice. Over time, you may even begin appreciating mistakes because they show you where growth is happening. A mistake means you attempted something. It means you stretched beyond your comfort zone. It means you were participating instead of hiding. In that sense, mistakes are signs of courage. There will come a day when you answer a question smoothly, express an opinion clearly, tell a story naturally, or continue a conversation longer than you ever imagined. That moment will not happen because you avoided mistakes. It will happen because you learned how to move through them. So from this point forward, stop treating mistakes as walls, treat them as stepping stones. Let them show you where to improve. Let them strengthen your speaking reflex. Let them teach you resilience. Speak, learn, adjust, and continue. Because fluency is not built by people who never make mistakes. Fluency is built by people who refuse to stop speaking when mistakes appear. Chapter 6: The Daily 3-Second Fluency Routine. Every learner wants fluency, but very few learners have a daily system designed to create it. This is one of the biggest reasons why progress often feels slow. Many people learn English only when they feel motivated. Some study intensely for a few days and then stop for a week. Others watch videos, read books, save vocabulary lists, and collect learning resources, but they never create a consistent routine that trains speaking every day. As a result, their knowledge continues growing while their speaking ability struggles to keep up. Fluency is not built by occasional effort. Fluency is built by repeated contact with the language. The good news is that you do not need 3 hours a day. You do not need a perfect environment. You do not need expensive courses or unlimited free time. What you need is a simple system that you can follow consistently, and this chapter will show you how to create that system using the 3-second habit. The purpose of a fluency routine is not to test your English. It is not an examination. It is training. When athletes train, they do not expect every movement to be perfect. They repeat important actions until those actions become stronger, faster, and more natural. English fluency develops in the same way. Your routine should focus on repetition, consistency, and gradual improvement rather than perfection. Every day that you practice, you strengthen the connection between thought and speech. Every day that you skip practice, that connection receives less reinforcement. This is why 10 minutes every day can often produce better results than 2 hours once a week. Consistency builds automaticity, and automaticity is one of the foundations of fluency. Before creating your routine, you must understand a simple truth. Speaking is a physical skill as well as a mental one. Many learners think English exists only inside the brain. They focus entirely on understanding. But speaking requires coordination between the brain, the mouth, the tongue, the voice, and the habits that control them. This is why reading about swimming is not the same as swimming, and reading about speaking is not the same as speaking. Your voice needs practice, your mouth needs repetition, your mind needs experience turning thoughts into spoken language. The routine you are about to build trains all of these areas together. The first part of the daily routine is activation. Before answering questions or practicing conversations, spend a few minutes activating your English. Think of this as warming up before exercise. Many learners make the mistake of expecting immediate fluency after spending the entire day using another language. Their English feels slow for the first few minutes and they become discouraged. In reality, their English simply needs activation. Begin by describing your surroundings. Look around the room and speak. I am sitting at my desk. There is a window beside me. I can hear traffic outside. My phone is charging. These sentences are simple, but they wake up your English-speaking system. They remind your brain that English is now active. After activation, move into the second stage, direct thinking practice. Choose ordinary topics from your life and describe them without writing anything down. Talk about your plans, your day, your goals, your challenges, or your opinions. Use the 3-second habit before beginning each response. Ask yourself, what am I trying to say? Then answer. If the topic is your morning routine, do not try to sound impressive. Simply explain it. The goal is to build speed between thought and speech. The more often you do this, the less dependent you become on translation. Many learners ask, what should I talk about if I am practicing alone? The answer is simple, talk about your life. Your life contains more speaking material than you realize. Discuss what happened yesterday. Describe what you are doing today. Explain what you hope to accomplish next month. Talk about a mistake you learned from. Describe a person you admire. Explain a decision you recently made. Discuss a habit you want to improve. These topics are powerful because you already know them. You are not struggling to invent content. You are practicing expression. The third stage of the routine is question training. This is where the 3-second habit becomes the center of your practice. Prepare a list of questions or use random questions from the internet. Read one question. Pause for 3 seconds. Choose your main idea. Begin speaking. Do not write the answer first. Do not prepare a script. Train your ability to respond in real time. Start with simple questions such as, what is your favorite season? What would you like to learn? What makes a good friend? As your confidence grows, move toward more complex questions that require explanation and opinion. When answering questions, use the answer, reason, example structure introduced earlier. First, answer directly. Second, explain why. Third, provide an example. This structure creates organized speech while keeping the process manageable. Over time, it becomes a natural thinking pattern. Instead of feeling lost when a question appears, you automatically know how to begin, develop, and complete your response. The fourth stage is storytelling practice. Storytelling is one of the most powerful fluency exercises because it combines vocabulary, grammar, sequencing, memory, and emotion. Every day, choose one small event from your life and tell the story aloud. It does not need to be dramatic. Describe something that happened at work, a conversation you had, a mistake you made, a place you visited, or an interesting observation from your day. Begin with what happened, explain the details, and describe the result. Storytelling teaches your mind how to connect multiple sentences into a coherent flow. Many learners struggle with storytelling because they attempt to tell perfect stories. Do not do that. Focus on clarity. Imagine that you are talking to a friend who simply wants to understand what happened. If you forget a word, describe it. If you make a grammar mistake, continue. The goal is flow, not perfection. The more stories you tell, the easier it becomes to organize thoughts while speaking. The fifth stage is retelling. Choose a short video, article, podcast segment, or lesson. Consume the content, then explain it in your own words. Do not repeat the original language exactly. Use your own English. This exercise is extremely valuable because it forces you to process meaning and recreate it. Retelling strengthens comprehension and speaking at the same time. It also teaches flexibility because you must communicate ideas without relying on memorized wording. One mistake learners often make is confusing memorization with fluency. They memorize answers, dialogues, and speeches, then feel confident because everything sounds smooth. However, real conversation rarely follows a script. Retelling helps solve this problem because it trains you to generate language spontaneously. You understand the message, then build your own version. This is much closer to real communication. The sixth stage is opinion practice. Opinions are essential because conversations frequently require them. People ask what you think, what you prefer, what you believe, and what you would do. Unfortunately, many learners freeze when expressing opinions because they are afraid of being wrong. Remember that most opinions do not have a right answer. The goal is expression, not perfection. Choose a topic and speak about it. Explain whether you agree or disagree. Support your position with reasons. Give examples. This practice strengthens confidence because it teaches you to trust your own ideas. Another important part of the routine is shadow speaking. Listen to a short sentence from a speaker and repeat it immediately. Focus on rhythm, pronunciation, and flow. This exercise trains your mouth to produce English more naturally. It is particularly useful because fluency is not only about knowing what to say, it is also about saying it smoothly. Shadowing helps develop that physical side of speaking. However, do not spend your entire practice session repeating other people's words. Shadowing should support fluency, not replace it. The ultimate goal is creating your own sentences. Use shadowing as a warm-up or pronunciation exercise, then return to active speaking practice. Recording yourself is another powerful element of the routine. Many learners avoid recordings because they dislike hearing their own voice, yet recordings provide information that memory cannot. When you listen back, you may notice strengths and weaknesses that were invisible during speaking. Perhaps your ideas were clearer than you expected. Perhaps you paused too often. Perhaps you repeated the same phrase many times. This information helps you improve. When reviewing recordings, do not focus only on mistakes. Notice improvements. Did you answer more quickly than before? Did you use a wider range of vocabulary? Did you stay calm under pressure? Did you tell a longer story? Recognizing progress is important because motivation grows when improvement becomes visible. One of the greatest dangers in language learning is measuring progress only through feelings. Some days you will feel fluent, other days you will feel slow. Feelings are not always reliable indicators of growth. A recording provides evidence. You can compare your speaking today with your speaking 1 month ago. Often the difference is larger than you realize. A strong routine also includes review. Many learners constantly chase new material while forgetting what they have already learned. Fluency grows when knowledge is recycled repeatedly. Review old vocabulary, reuse sentence patterns, answer familiar questions again, Retell stories multiple times. Every repetition strengthens retrieval speed. Remember, fluency depends heavily on retrieval. It is not enough to know something. You must be able to access it quickly. Your routine should also challenge you gradually. If you always practice the same easy topics, growth will slow. Introduce new subjects, discuss technology, education, health, travel, business, relationships, habits, goals, and social issues. Expand your comfort zone little by little. Growth occurs when familiar skills are applied to unfamiliar situations. At the same time, avoid making practice so difficult that it becomes overwhelming. The best challenge is slightly above your current level. Difficult enough to create growth, manageable enough to create success. This balance keeps practice productive. Many learners believe they need a speaking partner every day. A partner is helpful, but it is not required for daily progress. In fact, waiting for a partner often becomes an excuse. The routine described in this chapter can be completed entirely alone. You can activate English, answer questions, tell stories, retell content, express opinions, shadow speakers, and record yourself without another person. When opportunities for real conversations appear, your preparation will make those conversations far more productive. The 3-second habit should remain present throughout every stage. Before answering a question, pause. Before telling a story, pause. Before expressing an opinion, pause. Use the first second to breathe, the second to choose your message, and the third to begin. Over time, this process becomes automatic. Eventually, you may not consciously count 3 seconds at all. The habit becomes part of how you communicate. One reason this routine is so effective is that it trains fluency from multiple angles. Activation improves readiness, direct thinking reduces translation, question training develops responsiveness, storytelling improves flow, retelling strengthens flexibility, opinion practice builds confidence, shadowing improves delivery, recording creates awareness, review strengthens memory. Together, these elements create a complete fluency system. You should also learn how to handle bad practice days. There will be days when your English feels weak. Perhaps you are tired, distracted, stressed, or simply not performing at your best. Do not skip practice entirely. Reduce the difficulty if necessary, but maintain the habit. Consistency matters more than intensity. A short session completed on a difficult day often contributes more to long-term success than a perfect session completed occasionally. Think of fluency like building a path through a forest. Every time you practice, you walk the path. At first, the route is unclear and difficult. With repetition, the path becomes easier to follow. If you stop walking it for long periods, nature begins covering it again. Daily practice keeps the route open and strengthens it. Many learners underestimate how powerful small improvements become over time. If you answer 10 questions every day, that is more than 3,000 answers in a year. If you tell one story daily, that is hundreds of storytelling repetitions. If you spend 10 minutes strengthening your speaking reflex every day, the cumulative effect becomes enormous. Fluency is often the result of these invisible repetitions rather than dramatic breakthroughs. As your routine continues, you will notice certain changes. Questions will feel less intimidating. Responses will arrive faster. Translation will decrease. Familiar sentence patterns will become automatic. You will recover from mistakes more easily. Your confidence will become based on experience rather than hope. Most importantly, speaking English will begin feeling normal. That word, normal, is important. Many learners view English as something special, difficult, and separate from daily life. Fluency develops when English becomes normal. It becomes a language you use, not merely a subject you study. Your routine helps create that normalization by placing English into your day repeatedly. The ultimate purpose of the daily 3-second fluency routine is not to create perfect English, it is to create dependable English. Dependable English appears when you need it, it responds to questions, it expresses ideas, it survives mistakes, it continues under pressure. It allows you to participate instead of remaining silent. Every day you follow this routine, you are training that dependable version of yourself. You are teaching your brain that speaking is normal. You are teaching your mouth that English belongs there. You are teaching your confidence that communication is possible. And little by little, what once felt difficult begins feeling natural. Remember this: fluency is not built in one extraordinary day. It is built in ordinary days repeated consistently. One question, one answer, one story, one opinion, one recording, one practice session at a time. The learners who become fluent are not always the most talented. Often they are the ones who simply continue. They show up, they practice, they repeat, they improve. And every time they pause for 3 seconds, choose a message, and speak, they strengthen the habit that is quietly transforming them into fluent English speakers. Chapter 7. From 3 seconds to natural fluency. There comes a moment in every successful English learner's journey when something remarkable happens. The change is usually so small that it can easily be missed. No celebration occurs, no dramatic announcement appears, no voice suddenly declares that fluency has arrived. Instead, one day someone asks a question in English, and before fear has a chance to speak, you answer. The response may not be perfect, the grammar may not be flawless, you may still pause briefly, but something important has changed. The answer comes from you instead of from panic. For the first time, speaking feels more natural than avoiding. That moment is the beginning of real fluency. Many learners spend years waiting for fluency to appear like a gift. They imagine a future version of themselves who suddenly speaks English effortlessly because they finally learned enough vocabulary, finished enough courses, or memorized enough grammar. But fluency rarely arrives this way. Fluency is not an event. Fluency is a gradual transformation. It is the result of thousands of small decisions repeated over time. It is built every time you choose to answer instead of remaining silent, every time you use the 3-second habit, every time you continue after making a mistake, every time you describe a thought directly instead of translating an entire paragraph. Every time you trust simple English enough to communicate a real idea. The reason the 3-second habit is so powerful is that it attacks the true enemy of fluency. Many learners think vocabulary is the enemy. Others think grammar is the enemy. Some blame pronunciation. While these areas matter, they are rarely the biggest obstacle. The real obstacle is hesitation. Hesitation is the invisible wall standing between knowledge and communication. It is the space where fear grows. It is the delay where self-doubt becomes stronger than action. It is the moment when the learner knows something but cannot bring it into the conversation. The 3-second habit weakens that wall. It teaches your mind to move forward before hesitation gains control. At the beginning of this audiobook, you learned that speaking is not simply a language problem. It is a response problem. Many learners understand English but struggle to respond quickly. Their knowledge is trapped inside a slow process of translation, correction, and self-judgment. The 3-second habit creates a new process. Instead of panic, there is a pause. Instead of translation, there is meaning. Instead of silence, there is action. This new process may feel small, but repeated daily, it changes how your brain reacts to English itself. Think back to how many times you may have avoided speaking in the past. Perhaps you knew the answer but stayed quiet. Perhaps you had an opinion but chose not to express it. Perhaps you feared making a mistake, sounding foolish, or being judged. These experiences leave marks on the mind. Every avoided conversation teaches the brain that English is dangerous. Every silent moment reinforces hesitation. Over time, the habit of silence becomes stronger than the habit of speaking. Now consider the opposite process. Every time you answer a question, even imperfectly, you send a new message to your brain. You teach it that communication is possible. Every completed response becomes evidence. Every conversation becomes proof. Gradually, your mind stops treating English as a threat and begins treating it as a tool. This psychological shift is one of the most important parts of becoming fluent. Fluency is not only about language, it is also about trust. You must learn to trust your ability to communicate with the English you currently possess. Many learners underestimate how much fluency depends on trust. They believe confidence comes from knowing everything. In reality, confidence often comes from knowing that you can handle not knowing everything. Fluent speakers do not always have the perfect word. They do not always remember every grammar rule. They do not always know the best expression. What makes them appear confident is their ability to continue anyway. They trust themselves to explain, simplify, rephrase, clarify, and adapt. They trust their ability to stay in the conversation even when conditions are imperfect. This is why fluency feels different from knowledge. Knowledge lives in books, notes, videos, and lessons. Fluency lives in action. Knowledge tells you what is correct. Fluency helps you use what you know. Knowledge may explain a grammar structure perfectly. Fluency allows you to access that structure while speaking about your life. Both are important, but only one creates communication. As your speaking continues improving, you will begin noticing another important change. English will start requiring less conscious effort. At first, every sentence may feel like a construction project. You choose each word carefully. You check every structure. You monitor every sound. This is normal during the early stages. However, repeated use gradually creates automatic patterns. Common phrases become easier to retrieve. Familiar sentence structures appear more quickly. Answers that once required 10 seconds of preparation may require only 2 or 3. This is one of the clearest signs that fluency is developing. The brain loves efficiency. When you repeatedly use a language pattern, the brain begins storing it as a unit rather than a collection of separate pieces. Consider a phrase like, "I think the main reason is." At first, you may consciously choose each word. After enough repetition, the phrase becomes automatic. It appears as one complete thought. The same thing happens with countless expressions. In my opinion, I would like to. For example, what I mean is, the problem is, one thing I learned. These patterns reduce the mental effort required to begin speaking. As more patterns become automatic, more attention becomes available for ideas, emotions, and communication. This is why daily practice matters so much. Automaticity is not created by understanding alone. It is created by repetition. Every time you speak, you strengthen pathways inside the brain. The pathways become faster, more reliable, and more accessible. Eventually, certain responses feel natural because they have been used so often. However, natural fluency does not mean speaking quickly all the time. Many learners mistakenly equate speed with fluency. They hear a fast speaker and assume that speed is the goal. In reality, fluency is about flow, not speed. A fluent speaker can pause thoughtfully without losing confidence. A fluent speaker can slow down to explain something important. A fluent speaker can choose words carefully when necessary. Fluency means maintaining connection with your message, not racing through sentences. In fact, speaking too quickly can create problems. Learners who focus only on speed often sacrifice clarity. They rush through ideas, forget important details, and become harder to understand. True fluency balances flow and clarity. It allows communication to continue naturally while preserving meaning. As you continue your journey, you will also discover that fluency is not identical across every situation. You may speak confidently about familiar topics and struggle with unfamiliar ones. You may communicate easily with friends but feel nervous in professional settings. You may perform well one day and feel slower the next. This variation is completely normal. Even native speakers experience it. Fluency is not a fixed state. It changes according to context, energy, emotions, and experience. Do not let temporary difficulty convince you that progress has disappeared. Many learners panic after one difficult conversation. They think, "I was doing well last week. Why am I struggling today?" The answer is simple. Language performance naturally fluctuates. Progress should be measured over months, not moments. One difficult conversation cannot erase hundreds of successful practice sessions. Another important lesson is that fluency grows through participation, not observation. Watching English content is valuable. Reading English books is valuable. Listening to podcasts is valuable. But none of these activities can completely replace speaking. Imagine someone who watches hundreds of fitness videos but never exercises. Their knowledge may increase, but their physical ability will remain limited. The same principle applies to English. Input provides material. Output builds fluency. This is why you must continue creating opportunities to speak. Speak alone. Speak with friends. Speak with language partners. Speak into a recording. Speak while walking. Speak while thinking. Speak while learning. The more often English moves from your mind into your voice, the stronger the speaking pathway becomes. There will also be times when you feel stuck. Perhaps improvement seems slower than before. Perhaps your mistakes feel repetitive. Perhaps motivation decreases. These moments are part of every long-term learning journey. During such periods, many learners make a mistake. They abandon the habits that created their progress. Instead, return to the basics. Use the 3-second habit. Answer simple questions. Tell small stories. Describe daily experiences. Focus on consistency rather than dramatic improvement. Often the feeling of being stuck is misleading. growth continues beneath the surface. Skills are becoming more stable, patterns are becoming more automatic, confidence is becoming more resilient. The visible breakthrough often appears after a period that felt unproductive. You should also remember that fluency is not a destination where learning ends. Even highly fluent speakers continue expanding their vocabulary, improving their communication skills, and discovering new ways to express themselves. The goal is not to reach perfection. The goal is to reach freedom. Freedom means being able to communicate your thoughts, feelings, experiences, and ideas without constant fear. Imagine yourself 1 year from now if you consistently follow the principles in this audiobook. You answer questions more quickly, you hesitate less often, you recover from mistakes calmly, you think more directly in English, you trust simple language. You participate in conversations that once intimidated you, you express opinions more clearly, you tell stories more naturally. None of these changes happen overnight, but together they create a completely different speaking experience. The most exciting part is that you do not need to become someone else to achieve fluency. You do not need a new personality. You do not need extraordinary talent. You do not need a perfect accent. You do not need perfect grammar. You simply need consistent action. The English speaker you want to become is not a different person hiding somewhere in the future. That speaker is built through the habits you practice today. Every time you use the 3-second habit, you strengthen that future version of yourself. Every time you answer despite uncertainty, you strengthen it. Every time you continue after a mistake, you strengthen it. Every time you choose communication over perfection, you strengthen it. Eventually, something beautiful happens. English stops feeling like a performance. It stops feeling like a test. It stops feeling like a collection of rules. It becomes a tool for connection. You begin focusing less on the language itself and more on the people, ideas, stories, opportunities, and experiences the language allows you to access. This is when fluency becomes truly meaningful. The final stage of fluency is not speaking without mistakes. It is speaking without fear controlling every decision. Fear may still appear occasionally, nervousness may still visit, difficult conversations may still challenge you, but they no longer dominate the experience. You know how to respond, you know how to continue, you know how to trust yourself, and it all begins with something surprisingly small. 3 seconds. 3 seconds to breathe. 3 seconds to choose your message. 3 seconds to begin. Those 3 seconds may seem insignificant, yet they have the power to transform hesitation into action, silence into communication, and knowledge into fluency. The person who becomes fluent is not always the person who knows the most English. Often, it is the person who speaks despite uncertainty, the person who answers despite fear, the person who keeps going despite mistakes, the person who trusts simple English enough to use it. That person can be you. Not someday, not when your vocabulary doubles, not when your grammar becomes perfect, not when every fear disappears. Now, with the English you already have, with the voice you already possess, with the next question that comes your way. When that question arrives, remember everything you have learned. Do not rush, do not panic, do not disappear into translation. Give yourself 3 seconds, breathe, choose the message, begin, then let the answer grow. 1 sentence, 1 conversation, 1 day, 1 habit at a time. Because natural fluency is not built through extraordinary moments, it is built through ordinary moments repeated consistently until speaking English becomes as natural as sharing a thought. And that journey begins every single time you choose to use your voice. As you reach the end of this audiobook, I want you to remember something that most English learners never fully understand. Fluency is not hiding in a future course. It is not waiting inside a bigger vocabulary list. It is not locked behind perfect grammar. And it is not reserved for people with special talent. Fluency is built in the small moments that most learners ignore. The moment you choose to answer instead of staying silent. The moment you continue speaking after making a mistake. The moment you stop translating every thought. The moment you trust simple English enough to express a real idea. And the moment you give yourself 3 seconds and decide to speak. Throughout this audiobook, you have discovered a truth that can completely change your English journey. The biggest obstacle was never a lack of intelligence. It was never a lack of potential. It was the habit of hesitation. It was the space between knowing and speaking. It was the fear that appeared before your voice had a chance to be heard. But now you have a different habit. A habit that begins with a breath. A habit that begins with a simple thought. A habit that turns silence into action. 3 seconds. That is all it takes to start building a new relationship with English. 3 seconds to calm your mind. 3 seconds to choose your message. 3 seconds to begin speaking before fear takes control. If you continue using this habit every day, something incredible will happen. The questions that once frightened you will become ordinary. The conversations that once felt impossible will become manageable. The words that once felt trapped inside your mind will begin finding their way into your voice. And one day, without realizing exactly when it happened, you will answer a question in English naturally, not because you memorized the answer, not because you translated it, but because English has become part of the way you think, respond, and communicate. That is the moment every learner dreams about, and it is closer than you think. Remember, fluency is not one giant leap. It is thousands of small responses. One question, one answer, one conversation, one day at a time. So from this day forward, make a promise to yourself. Do not wait until you feel ready. Do not wait until you know every word. Do not wait until every fear disappears. Speak with the English you have today, because the English you use grows stronger. The English you hide becomes weaker. Use your voice. Trust the process. Keep showing up. Keep answering. Keep speaking. And whenever doubt appears, return to the habit that started everything. Pause. Breathe. Choose your message. And speak. This audiobook was published by English Mindset Academy. If this book helped you, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments, "I will speak before fear stops me." Make that commitment today, because your journey to fluency does not begin when you become perfect. It begins the moment you decide that your voice deserves to be heard. Thank you for listening. And remember, your future fluent self is created by the choices you make today.